Good morning. Hi, I'm Brian. I'm an alcoholic. I do have experience with these steps as they're laid out in this book with the help of a Big Book Step Study sponsor, a very, very, very patient, loving God. Meetings like these, I'm actively making financial amends and working in the latter steps on a daily basis. Thank you, Robin, for asking me to share. I hate this thing. It's been a while since I've shared at the podium at a Big Book Step Study meeting, so I'm very grateful to be here to share my experience, strength, and hope. My experience as of lately has been, not necessarily getting to Big Book Step Study meetings, but other meetings where there might not be this solution, and doing commitments, and that's been my experience as of late. And so I'm very grateful that I am back sitting in this seat, because a little over 10 months ago, I was coming to this meeting, but I was very much under the influence. I was very sick, and I wanted to die. But for the grace of God, intervened in my life, which I think now is my mom's spirit, said, honey, you need inpatient care, and I said, okay. And I went inpatient, and essentially my date is September 19th. And so just over 10 months again. I'm very grateful for the 10 months, because once I got out of treatment, I got right back into the work. And this is the work. This is it. This is the juice, man. This is what gets me back and gets me well again. And it helps me to reconnect with God. That's what this work is about, is establishing and staying connected with God for me. And when I disconnect from God, you see what you got last summer, which was someone very sick, someone who was very much self-willed and self-centered and self-seeking and resentful and actually really scared. That's what it is. It's fear. It's not resentment. It's not all that. It's fear. And so I had a wonderful sponsor who didn't hesitate to tell me the truth. He looked at me in 2009 and said, you're sick. You're going to die if you don't do something about yourself. You're the problem, not me, not other people in the world. So before I could get to this step, I had to do this drastic self-appraisal and see that Brian is the problem. Brian will always be the problem. It's not you guys like I thought it was. It's not society at large that's the problem. It's not the police. It's not the institutions. It's not the detoxes. It's Brian. It always has been Brian. My thought process has very much been broken since I can remember. I've been very much uncomfortable in my own skin since I can remember. And so I did anything to rest that discomfort. So coming in, my sponsor said, you're going to die if you don't accept step one, if you don't accept it wholly in your life. You might not have to understand it right now, but you better accept the fact that you're an alcoholic and addict. And folks, I've been struggling with this acceptance for 18 years. Hence, I told you I got a little over 10 months again. I started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1998. I was 18 years old. I'm now 37. So there's been struggle there. There's been self-will quite a bit of those 18 years. And because after a period of time, I'm like, I think I got this. I don't have this. Quick story, this morning. All right, for people who work out, there's this pre-workout drink you can drink to give you a boost, right? So what I do is subconsciously, I put in 2 scoops. So now I have 500 milligrams of caffeine running through my system. Why do I do this? Because 2 is better than 1. But that's my subconscious thinking. I don't ever do that. So, needless to say, I was sick before I worked out. But that's how this thought process works. So I did my prayers this morning. I talked to God. I did my reading. But still, I have to be careful of this thing on top of my shoulders. So, I've come in and I've come to terms with my thought process is very much insane. It's broken. I need God. Only an act of providence can remove it from me, and that means my thought process. And so I still need God today. And then, in the third step, I made a decision, and I turned my will and my life over to God on a daily basis. I just said that prayer before I started sharing, and that's what was taught to me. And what was wonderful about my fourth step is that I really saw dishonesty that I didn't really see, but I couldn't see. My sponsor was very good at pointing it out to me. These things that I didn't necessarily see. I was like, well, I was honest here. I admit it. And he's like, but did you admit it for the purpose of admitting it? Or did you want recognition for admitting it? I'm like, what? He's like, that's still very much selfish, Brad. I'm like, so like I can't get away from the selfishness without God. That's been my experience. So And I read my fifth step to my sponsor. We laughed, I cried, I got angry. I'm like, I can only read for 15 minutes. He's like, no, we're gonna do at least an hour. I'm like, why? And then he proceeds to tell me in 6 and 7, like, that there's only 2 paragraphs, Brian, because you're still powerless. You can't remove your own defects of character, like you can't remove your disease from yourself. So don't make a list for God about your defects, because you're playing God when you do that. I'm like, you're really aggravating me. And so, because I was taught, like, make a list of your defects and give them up to God, and I would do that, then I'm like, this isn't working. So now it's kind of like letting God do his work how he's supposed to, like how he should have been in my entire life. And, so 6 and 7, say the 7-step prayer on a daily basis. And, essentially after seeing all these defects of character and seeing how is that thing going? I don't know. A little bit. So after seeing all of these defects of character and how I was acting in my relationships, how I was needy and insecure, I was needy upon you, like, make me feel good about me. Tell me you love me, but you need to tell me 100 times because I don't just want to hear it once. Like, I don't believe when you just tell me once that you do. So please tell me again. It's like never going to be filled. So the only thing that can fill this gaping hole that's inside of me, this void, is God. And that's the real love today. And, it's amazing where I'm at today with what's been taking place in my life this past year. Again, but for the grace of God. So I'll get to that in just a minute. I want to talk on 8 and 9. So my sponsor said, you say the 7-step prayer, you sit with God for an hour. Or you sit with God for an hour, you say the 7-step prayer. And I remember doing that as best I could because I'm wired for sound, like my mind goes. I'm not someone that sits still well. I'm getting better. I'm very much getting better at it. Some days are better than others. So he said, let's make a list. He's like, but don't go back to your 4th step. He's like, you pray about it. And what God brings forward to the forefront of your mind, you put down on paper. And he's like, he didn't have me separate like willing, not willing, never. He's like, you're just going to do them. So why separate the lists? He's like, let's just get honest. You're going to do them or you're going to die. Or you're going to be willing to do them or you're going to die. And he was absolutely right. And the truth is, up to 11, a little over 10 and a half months ago, I was actively making amends. I was actively speaking with a sponsor on a regular basis, and I just didn't dig deep enough with this resentment I had towards my spouse at the time and family, and I picked up. And so I'm still working on those amends today and financially making amends to my stepfather still monthly. He was very much on the list for financial, and so that's what I'm doing today is a monthly payment to Dana-Farber. That's what he said to Jimmy when he's like, that's what I give to. That's what I want you to do. I was like, I don't even want to know the amount you stole from me. He's like, this is just what I want you to do until it's paid off. I said, okay. So I immediately, the past, 6 or 7 months, I started doing that again because when you're active, you don't think about making amends to people. You're causing more harm again. And so, so I had a lot of those experiences. I had my sponsor. The sponsor that essentially brought me through the work is no longer my sponsor. I got another sponsor who we sat down for a couple hours one day and we thoroughly went over my list. And it was kind of awkward, but it was so much needed. And this is a living amends. This is a financial amends. This is a direct amends. And I very much don't just say, well, this would be a great idea to talk to this person about. Let's put it on. I have to write it out, go over it with my sponsor, and then go forward and make my demonstration. And there's times where I made demonstration, I heard nothing back. I would try 3 times, and at that point I don't want to harass the person. So I've made a lot of direct amends, and they have all turned out to be pretty well. Very much brought God into it. A good friend of mine always says, my mouth, your words, God. And if I do that and I honestly invite God in, then it's going to work out how it's supposed to. And, so I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful today. I'm experiencing some of these promises now, and it's not that I didn't experience them before, but I am amazed. I'm amazed that, I'm able to stand on my own 2 feet today. I'm amazed that I can enjoy the day and enjoy the moment, whereas I couldn't before. So what is amazing to me today is that I don't react on emotion anymore, so there's no amends to be made. I don't have to add people to my list. And that's something that's very new for me. Because, in my mind, you pissed me off. I was on vacation last week, and I was with somebody, and they got upset. In my mind, I'm getting another room, and I'm flying out tomorrow. We're done. But, what happens is then God comes in and says, Brian, not a great idea. So I go in the bathroom, I say a prayer, and I come out and I say, this is how I feel. This is why I'm upset. What a concept. Healthy living, it's not very difficult. I make it difficult. So these are the type of scenarios where I don't have to cause further harm. I don't have to add to my direct amends list. And, so I'm very much aware of that pause today. And I'm the only one that tells myself that I'm not. You know what I mean? I'm my own worst enemy. And today I'm very much aware of that pause. I use that pause. I thank God for it. And, I just feel blessed today. And I think this is where the rubber hits the road, is the 9th step, is going out and making these direct amends to people that I've harmed. And my sponsor's like, let's not, you're so good, man. He said, so we're not going to go out and just blast through this list. I'm like, I just want to get them done. He's like, then that's about you. I'm like, oh, dude, this guy kills me. Mike knows. He kills me. I'm like, oh, come on. I just want to. He's like, Brian, this is no longer about you. This is about the other person. So if you're making this about you and going out to make this amend, he's like, you better not make that amend. You better stop, because you might cause further harm. Because it is about forgiving the other person if they have had part in it. I have to separate their part from my part. I have to acknowledge my part, not their part anymore. And someone who's got 3 or 4 notebooks full of resentments, it's very difficult for me not to acknowledge your part, not to cast this, judgment. So but it's practice, right? It's practice. So I'm learning today that there are more financial amends that I need to make, and I'm willing to do those. And there might, and God will reveal to me in time that there's direct amends from my use and abuse of last summer. I know there's one individual that was directly affected, and there will be a direct amend there. It's just kind of sore right now to do that. And so I'm willing in all of these. I'm willing to grow spiritually because I'm too scared not to anymore. And I've shared this all in the past. You guys have heard this from me in the past. But something happened to me 11 months ago where that voice came in and said, you really need help, Ryan. You're going to die. And I was at a point in last September that I didn't care if I was alive or dead. I was really considering suicide. I didn't care about my job. I resigned to the fact that I'm going to die from a drug overdose, and that's okay. That's what I told myself. And life would be better off without me. That's where I was. And again, I talk about my mom Stuart with conviction because she was very much my strength then. She passed away last July 11th, and I relapsed initially on July 7th. And I went to her bedside under the influence again. And that ate at me for 2.5 months. But knowing my mom's spirit, knowing who she is, she loved me unconditionally. She took me back every time, so what would be different now, right? But my disease had me so sick that my mom hated me for that. And that kept me going. And she's forgiven me. I believe that. And she's very much my strength today. So in September of last year, it was her voice that said, Brian, you need inpatient care. I love you, honey. Get the help that you need. And I said, okay. And someone had been saying that to me for over a month. And I said, I'm not doing that. What about my job? She's like, you're not going to work. You're falling asleep at work. So there is the living amend there. Go back and do your job because the bank could have fired you. And they did not. They kept me on. And there's very much still support today. So there's a living amend right there to go do your job to the best of your ability and keep your mouth shut, which I still have difficulty doing, complaining. But I practice these spiritual principles and I practice these things on a daily basis because I don't want to be sick again. I don't necessarily have to pick up a drink or drug to be sick. As you heard with my pre-workout scenario this morning, like I tell you, I don't have to be under the influence to do that, as you know. So I'm very much grateful today, and I just want to share that the support in these rooms have been unbelievable for my life this past year, especially the past 6 months. I'm able to talk about this today because the individual is not here, is that I'm now separated from my spouse. I've moved on in my life, and I didn't think I ever could do that. I thought that this was the person that I needed in my life to be okay. And the truth is when I was in rehab last fall, a voice came in again and said, no matter what happens with your marriage, you will be okay. I promise you that. And I essentially left my house in January, stayed with my best friend for 3 months, and now I have my own place. I'm actually able to take care of myself. Who would have thunk? But for the grace of God. And I share these things because this has been my experience. This has been my truth for the past 6 months. I can't come up here and not share my truth for the past 6 months. What's helped me in the past 6 months is doing commitments every other weekend to the place I went to, working with a sponsor, going to meetings that don't necessarily have this solution, and sharing my experience, strength, and hope. So it's the ebb and flow of life. It's life on life's terms. So I can either fight it or I can roll with it, accept it, move forward with God, hand in hand with God. Because if I fight it, then I will be making more amends because I will be harming more people. So this work has changed my life dramatically. And one thing I want to say about the folks in this room and other meetings is that I've come to this meeting under the influence. I've come back a few times, and you all just welcome me back. I want to thank you for that. Because I've gone into meetings, and people have said, where the hell have you been? What's wrong with you? That doesn't help someone walking back into the rooms. You know what I mean? It doesn't. Why'd you pick up? What the hell's wrong with you? Obviously, you need to learn something about this disease if you're asking me that question. Because I don't have the answers, as it says in this book sometimes. So I want to thank you folks for that. There's a lot of love in these rooms, and very grateful to be here. And I thank you for letting me share. I'll pass it back. Thanks.